This webinar is being recorded.
Welcome everyone. Thank you for joining us for today's webinar on the funding opportunity for a cooperative agreement for the development and implementation of Healthy Meals Incentives Recognition Awards and subgrants for school food authorities. We have a few housekeeping items before we get started. Today's webinar is being recorded. You are currently in listen-only mode and questions will be answered during the last 10 minutes of the webinar. It would be helpful for you to have a copy of the Request for Applications, or RFA, in front of you as we will be referencing it throughout the webinar. A link to the RFA is located in the screen in the lower right-hand corner. You can also scan the QR code with your smartphone's camera app to access the RFA. If you would like to ask a question, please use the Q&A box in the lower right corner of the screen at any time during the webinar. We will answer as many questions as we can at the end of the webinar. All questions and responses, as well as a recording of this presentation, will be posted by October 20th, 2022. All who registered for this webinar will also receive an email when the webinar recording and the Q&A document become available. To access the Q&A box, click the three dots located in the bottom right corner of your screen. This is shown as step 1 on the slide. Click on Q&A as shown on step 2, and you should be able to type in your question. Please direct your question to all panelists in the drop-down menu. The chat box is disabled, so please use the Q&A box to enter your questions, and we'll address them at the end of the presentation. Before we continue, I want to make sure you can hear us, so we've put the audio dial-in information on this slide for those who are having trouble hearing us through their computer speakers. This webinar is also being live captioned, so to view live captioning, you can click Continue in the WebEx Multimedia Viewer. You can click Continue, and then you should be able to view the live captioning. And you can also use the controls located in the bottom of the Multimedia Viewer to change view settings. If you can't see the Multimedia Viewer, please request the link through the Q&A box. You can copy and paste the link into a new browser tab or window. The captioner will not be able to answer any questions related to the webinar. Thank you for your attention. We'll now begin today's informational webinar.
Thank you, and hello everyone. I am so pleased to see so many here today to learn more about this exciting funding opportunity for a cooperative agreement to support the Healthy Meals Incentive Initiative. As G mentioned, we'll be talking about the request for applications for the development and implementation of Healthy Meals Incentives Recognition Awards and subgrants for school food authorities. My name is Alicia White, and I am the branch chief of the Nutrition Education and Promotion branch at the USDA's Food and Nutrition Service Child Nutrition Programs. And I'm joined today by Ji Chang and Kimberly Visioni, who are nutritionists in the child nutrition programs with me at USDA, as well as Anna Aerosmith, who is the grant officer for this opportunity. Anna Aerosmith is the specific point of contact for any questions your organization may have about this RFA after this webinar. So to begin, I wanted to talk a little bit about the school meals programs and the school food authorities, or SFAs, that operate them. The National School Lunch Program and School Breakfast Program are federally assisted meal programs operating in public schools and nonprofit private schools and residential child care institutions. And these programs provide nutritionally balanced, low-cost or no-cost meals to children each school day. And these school meals really provide critical nutrition to tens of millions of children every school day. And for many children, the food they receive from school breakfast and lunch makes up about half of their dietary intake each school day. Next week is National School Lunch Week, where we'll celebrate the tremendous positive impact that school meals have on the health and well-being of children. Also during National School Lunch Week, we recognize the hard work and dedication of school nutrition professionals who are engaging students in developing healthy and delicious meals. So the timing of this webinar, so very close to National School Lunch Week, is very fitting, as the Healthy Meals Incentives Recognition Awards and subgrants to be implemented under this cooperative agreement will help uplift and share best practices and innovative strategies developed by school food authorities across the country to improve school meals. So during today's informational webinar, G, Kim, and I will provide some background on the Healthy Meals Incentives Initiative and an overview of the request for applications for the development and implementation of the Healthy Meals Incentives Recognition Awards and subgrants. We'll discuss who is eligible to submit applications under this RFA, the application process, application requirements, and the evaluation and scoring criteria. So let's begin with an overview of the Healthy Meals Incentive Initiative, which Secretary Vilsack mentioned at the recent White House Conference on Hunger, Nutrition, and Health. This initiative includes activities in 4 areas: recognition awards for school food authorities that have made significant improvements in the nutritional quality of their school meals, competitive grants of up to $150,000 for small and/or rural school food authorities to assist them with the improvement of the nutritional quality of their school meals, and Healthy Meals Summits, which will convene recognition award recipients to share best practices and discuss strategies for sustaining achievements into the future. And finally, School Food Systems Transformation Grants, which will stimulate innovation in the area of strengthening the availability of nutritious food products in the K-12 school food marketplace. So the purpose of today's webinar is to discuss USDA FNS's request for applications for a cooperative agreement with a non-governmental organization to develop and implement 3 of the 4 key strategies under the Healthy Meals Incentives Initiative: the recognition awards and grants for school food authorities, and the planning and implementation of the Healthy Meals Summits. So you see this reflected in the key objectives of this cooperative agreement as specified in the RFA on page 6. Under this cooperative agreement, the cooperator will develop, implement, and manage a Healthy Meals Incentives Recognition Awards initiative that recognizes SFAs for meeting FNS established criteria for improving school meals. They will also provide funding and technical assistance to small and/or rural SFAs participating in school meals. And finally, the cooperator will plan and implement 2 Healthy Meals Summits. So a term that you're going to hear a lot in the webinar today is School Food Authority. And this term is defined in the request for applications as the governing body which is responsible for the administration of 1 or more schools and has the legal authority to operate the program, in this case, the school meals programs, or to be otherwise approved by USDA FNS to operate the program. Colloquially, sometimes people refer to school districts when also referencing school food authorities. School food authorities are the recipients of many of the activities to be developed and implemented under the cooperative agreement that we're going to discuss today. So for example, all school food authorities participating in school meals will be eligible to apply for recognition awards that are administered under this cooperative agreement. In addition, small and rural SFAs participating in school meals will be eligible to apply for competitive subgrants. Representatives from award-winning SFAs will attend the Healthy Meals Summits, and all SFAs will have access to the best practices shared by award recipients and subgrantees as part of this work. These best practices will be able to be adapted and used by other SFAs to assist them in improving the nutritional quality of their school meals in a way that engages students in the process, utilizes local foods, and respects the diversity of cultures of students participating in the school meals programs. USDA FNS is committed to helping small and rural SFAs improve the nutritional quality of their school meals. The best practices and achievements of small and rural schools are really an important part to include under the Healthy Meals Incentives efforts. And the organization that is selected for this cooperative agreement will assist FNS in supporting small and rural SFAs through the provision of grants and technical assistance to help small rural SFAs overcome challenges related to things like limited staffing, increased food costs, access incentives efforts reach small and rural SFAs through targeted communications and training efforts. So I'm going to go over now some of the highlights of the request for applications. The total amount of the award for this cooperative agreement is up to $47 million, of which $30 million will go to small and or rural SFAs in the form of subgrants. There are no cost sharing or matching requirements for this cooperative agreement. The first key date to be aware of is the letter of intent due date, which is October 21st, 2022. The letter of intent is not required, but it does allow FNS to prepare for the application review process. There is no penalty if you don't submit a letter of intent, but it's very much appreciated. And of course, the most important date is the application due date, which is at FNS expects to announce the cooperative agreement award in January of 2023, and the period of performance for this cooperative agreement will be from February of 2023 through the end of December 2025. Information on entities that are eligible to submit an application under this RFA is specified on page 11 of the RFA. Non-governmental entities are eligible to apply, and this includes accredited colleges and universities, private or public nonprofit organizations, for-profit organizations, and research institutions. State agencies and school food authorities are not eligible to apply to be the cooperator that develops and implements this National Recognition Awards program and the $30 million grant program for small and rural SFA. Under this cooperative agreement, the cooperator has an overall responsibility for planning, implementing, and operating all aspects of the project. Some examples of cooperator activities include providing staffing to manage and operate the project, training staff and partners on the project and its activities, communicating and collaborating with USDA, FNS, and other Healthy Meals Incentives partners, developing a plan of deliverables, including all metrics, meeting specific obligations and milestones, attending regular meetings with USDA, FNS, accounting for project funds and ensuring proper fiscal responsibility and oversight, and finally, documenting decisions and retaining records in relation to the project. This RFA is for a cooperative agreement, so I wanted to take a brief moment to highlight the difference between a grant and a cooperative agreement. A grant is federal assistance in the form of money or property authorized by federal law to support a program with a public purpose that the government wishes to encourage. A cooperative agreement serves many of the same purposes as grants, but also includes substantial programmatic involvement on the part of the agency, which in this case is USDA FNS. This slide shows some examples of how USDA FNS plans to collaborate, consult, and in some cases approve some aspects of the cooperative agreement activities. Some of these examples of FNS's substantial involvement include collaborating on the development of the RFA for subgrants, including allowable and unallowable costs, collaborating on the development and implementation of communication campaigns, providing final approval of the selection of subgrant awardees, consulting on the development of websites and online applications, approving all uses of the USDA logo, approving recognition award recipients monthly, consulting during the planning of the Healthy Meals Summits, including providing input and approval of the dates, times, agendas, and locations, and finally approving the final list of Healthy Meals Summit invitees. We are very much looking forward to working with our future cooperator on this national effort. So that's your big picture view of this funding opportunity and the important work it will support. I'm now going to turn things over to Kim, who will provide more details on the activities and requirements under the RFA. Kim?
Thanks, Alicia. As Alicia mentioned, this RFA is an announcement of the availability of funds for a cooperative agreement to develop and manage the following three components of the Healthy Meals Incentives Initiative. 1, the recognition awards for school food authorities. 2, the grants for small and rural school food authorities. And 3, Healthy Meal Summits. The cooperator will play a pivotal role in helping FNS recognize and uplift best practices and innovative ideas for increasing whole grain rich grains and reducing sodium and added sugars in school meals, as well as successful strategies for nutrition education, student engagement, scratch cooking, and the cultural diversity of foods offered at school meals. So we're thrilled to see so much interest in this effort. For the recognition awards, it's important to note that FNS is developing the award criteria in advance of awarding the cooperative agreement. We anticipate providing up to 10 types of recognition awards. We're still working together with stakeholders on the final award criteria, but the cooperator will be provided all the award information at the start of the cooperative agreement. The cooperator expectations for these recognition awards are to develop and maintain a secure website and online application process, develop and implement a communications campaign to promote the awards and encourage SFAs to apply. The cooperator will also provide customer service and technical assistance to SFAs on the awards application, criteria, and required documentation. Review applications and supporting documentation against award criteria and recommend award recipients to FNS. The cooperator will develop non-monetary recognition awards and provide them to SFA award recipients. SFAs will be able to receive awards in more than one category, but the cooperator must ensure that SFAs only receive each award once. Last, collect and communicate best practices and success stories from recognition award recipients to be shared with other SFAs. For the grants to SFAs, we expect the cooperator to create, post, and advertise the request for applications for small and/or rural SFAs, pre-screen, review, and evaluate the subgrant applications against established criteria, and ensure applicants are eligible under the definitions of small and rural and are participating in the National School Lunch Program and/or School Breakfast Program. And we provide those definitions for small and rural SFAs in the RFA. Next, award subgrants of up to $150,000 each to at least 200 eligible SFAs with FNS's approval. As we mentioned earlier, this will come from the $30 million of the $47 million awarded to the cooperator. Next, provide technical assistance and training to subgrantees on strategies to improve school meal quality to meet the recognition awards criteria. Monitor subgrantee progress and financial reports. And last, collect and communicate best practices and success stories from subgrant recipients. Finally, the cooperator will play an important role in planning 2 Healthy Meal Summits. This will include securing meeting space, hotel blocks, audio-visual needs, and all other logistics for the 2 summits. Developing signage, agendas, and meeting materials for the summits. The cooperator will also plan methods for recognizing award recipients and school food system transformation grant recipients during the summits. This includes coordinating ways for attendees to share best practices with each other and with FNS during the conference. And the cooperator will provide stipends to at least 2 representatives from each SFA that received an award to attend a summit. So to bring all of these activities together, some key dates and timeline considerations for the cooperator include awarding the subgrants to small and rural SFAs prior to July of 2023. FNS intends for the subgrant application period to occur for a designated amount of time and to award successful applicants at one time, not on a rolling basis. From July of 2023, so now I'll go over allowable costs that will help facilitate all of these activities. First, it's very important to mention that all requested costs must be allowable, allocable, necessary, and reasonable in accordance with the OMB Code of Federal Regulations cost principles in 2 CFR Part 200 and Part 400, which is the Uniform Administrative Cost Principles and Audit Requirements for Federal Awards. Remember, all expenditures must be reasonable and necessary for the purposes of this cooperative agreement. All of the allowable costs are listed in detail in the RFA. Some of them include expenditures for supplies, including small equipment, less than $5,000, event activities, the salary and benefits for the project director and other justified key staff. Also, procurement of technology, including hardware, software, and the development of a website and online award application for SFAs are part of the allowable costs. Marketing and promotion expenses can include the development and publication of videos, brochures, advertisements, and social media graphics used to inform SFAs of the recognition awards and subgrants. For non-monetary recognition awards, allowable costs include things such as digital badges, banners, certificates, and video messages. Training and technical assistance can include translation services and costs for adapting training materials into accessible formats, such as 508 compliance. For travel, all associated costs for the project director and other key staff to attend the Healthy Meal Summits or to attend meetings at our national office in Virginia are allowable. So now for some non-allowable costs. These include marketing items like promotional swag and door prize items. For example, blankets, candy, clothing, keychains, and other items noted in the RFA are not allowable. Also, for the recognition awards, things like gift cards, cash, and other monetary awards are not allowable costs. So vacations, spa packages, hotel stays, or other prizes of this nature are not allowable. Allowable costs for the small and rural SFA subgrants are listed on the screen and include funds used for SFA staffing, contractual services, training, food samples and supplies for student taste test events, school food service equipment, nutrient analysis software, travel, and other direct costs specifically to assist in the provision of healthier school meals as described under the recognition awards criteria in the RFA. So now I'll briefly cover how to apply for this opportunity. To apply, the cooperator is required to develop a project proposal to administer and manage the development and implementation of Healthy Meals Incentives recognition awards and subgrants for SFAs. The project proposal must only include activities consistent with the key objectives that Alicia mentioned earlier that are also defined. As part of your application package, we're looking for you to include a cover sheet, a table of contents, and an executive summary that describes your proposed project activities and anticipated outcomes. This section should know any innovative or creative aspects of your proposal. Next, the applicant information should be a description of your organizational structure and capacity to complete activities outlined in the RFA. A project narrative should include an introduction explaining your interest in applying for the RFA and relevant experience or partnerships. It should also describe the proposed plan and timeline and address specific tasks to develop and implement the recognition awards, subgrants, and Healthy Meal Summits. Next, a budget and budget narrative must be submitted that describe appropriate use of grant funds and justification for costs. You must also submit a current negotiated indirect cost rate to charge indirect costs to the cooperative agreement. If you do not have or have never been approved for a negotiated indirect cost rate, you may charge up to 10% de minimis and must indicate you are requesting this rate. If not requesting indirect costs to be charged, it must be stated in the budget narrative. For subgrants, only the first $25,000 of each subgrant award is subject to the indirect cost rate of the cooperator. Next, proposed activities and indicators measuring success must be mapped to the key objectives in an activities and indicators tracker. We included an example of this tracker in section 4 of the RFA. Finally, make sure to submit all required application forms, which can be found on grants.gov. They're also listed on the application checklist in the RFA. I'll now turn it over to G to review the evaluation criteria. G?
Thank you so much. As Kim just mentioned, I'll now cover the evaluation criteria, which is how applications will be scored. Applicants will be evaluated on a 100-point scale with up to 10 additional bonus points available. We'll cover each section in more depth, but as an overview, 30 points are available for the applicant's approach to customer service, technical assistance, and application review process. 20 points for the marketing, communications, and event planning approach. 10 points for partnerships and collaborations. 25 points for staffing, management approach, and quality assurance. 15 points for the budget, and 10 additional bonus points are also available. So the first evaluation criteria we'll cover is the customer service, technical assistance, and application review approach, which is worth 30 points. The applicant should have the subject matter expertise and experience to provide customer service to SFAs applying for awards and subgrants through online applications described under this RFA. The applicant must also demonstrate extensive knowledge and experience in school nutrition services, foods available in the K-12 school food marketplace, school food procurement, and school food preparation techniques. The proposed approach should include a plan to disseminate insights and findings from technical assistance provided to inform other SFAs. And the proposed approach should provide a staffing level that will support the level of effort and timelines outlined in the RFA, and should also be adequate to support SFAs participating in the National School Lunch Program and School Breakfast Program in all 50 states, the District of Columbia, Puerto Rico, Guam, and the U.S. Virgin Islands. This approach should include strategies for assisting SFAs with tribal schools and SFAs in small and/or rural areas apply for the recognition awards and subgrants. Finally, the proposed approach should also provide customer service, technical assistance, and application review in both English and Spanish, and in a manner that's accessible for persons with disabilities. For marketing, communication, and event planning, which is worth 20 points, the applicant should describe their expertise, experience, and network to develop a communications campaign to inform SFAs of the recognition awards and subgrant opportunities and motivate them to apply. The proposed approach should reflect a knowledge and understanding of key motivators and communication channels utilized by SFAs and school nutrition professionals. The proposed approach should present innovative and creative strategies to recognize SFAs through non-monetary recognition. Further, the applicant or its subgrantees, subcontractors, or partners should also demonstrate experience in planning large meetings and conferences, including event planning and logistics. So now let's talk about partnerships and collaborations, which is worth 10 points. The applicant should describe an approach that includes the use of partnerships and collaborations to achieve the objectives under this RFA. These partnerships and collaborations should be documented by letters of commitment from the organizations and should support diverse and under-resourced SFAs in their approaches to improve the nutritional quality of their school meals. These partnerships should also help build support and interest in the recognition awards and result in broader dissemination of success stories and best practices. The next evaluation criteria we'll discuss is staffing, management approach, and quality assurance, which is worth 25 points. The application should provide a staffing plan that outlines each key staff position that must be filled during the cooperative agreement period of performance. The plan should provide sufficient and complete documentation that the time commitment of each key staff member is appropriate for their project roles and demonstrate that partners or contractors, if any, have appropriate experience and commitment to effectively fulfill their proposed roles within the timeframe and financial constraints of the cooperative agreement. The staffing plan should document evidence that staff have expertise in school nutrition, meal pattern standards, culinary skills, project management, financial management, and the management of grants and partnerships. The applicant should also provide an organizational chart that indicates the chain of command for all key project entities and explain contingency plans for key staff, partner, and/or subgrantee turnover. For quality assurance, the application should provide a clear approach to providing the oversight necessary to ensure high-quality products, services, or outcomes, and to keep the cooperative agreement on time and within budget. The applicant should include a proposed timeline, which should be practical and include all key milestones and deadlines in a manner that's realistic and achievable. The application should demonstrate fiscal accountability and effective internal controls to ensure funds are used only for project purposes. The application should describe methods to monitor the customer service, technical assistance, and timely recognition of awards to SFAs. The application should also include procedures to ensure adequate collaboration with FNS and allows for required FNS approvals as outlined in the RFA. Finally, the project narrative should describe adequate efforts to keep federal records secure and describe a secure method to provide these records to FNS at the end of the cooperative agreement. Now on to the budget, which is worth 15 points. The application should include a budget narrative describing how costs within the budget categories were derived and links between expenditures and specific activities and tasks. The applicant should also provide documentation of all implementation and operational costs that are necessary to accomplish the objectives of this project. Specifically, the budget should show how the applicant will allocate its awarded amount to complete activities listed under Section 4.1 in the RFA. All costs in the budget should be allowable, necessary, reasonable, and allocable, and the total funding amount requested should be appropriate for the scope of the project. Finally, there are up to 10 bonus points available. These are bonus points and not a requirement of the proposal. However, 5 bonus points are available for incorporating and describing how the chosen approach will affect a meaningful impact on racial equity and inclusion. This could be accomplished by demonstrating a relevant way to eliminate barriers while achieving the objectives of this cooperative agreement in reaching underserved or marginalized populations or communities. And another 5 bonus points are available if grant funds are used to obtain the services of contractors. The application should describe an approach to contract with businesses with economically or socially disadvantaged owners to achieve the objectives of this cooperative agreement. All right, So once you submitted your application, here's what to expect. After applications are successfully submitted through grants.gov, they'll be screened to eliminate ineligible applicants. Late or incomplete applications will not be considered, and each entity should only apply once for the opportunity. Applications will then be given to a review panel where each member will independently score the applications based on the evaluation and scoring criteria, which I just covered. The top scoring application is then recommended for award. And FNS expects to award this cooperative agreement to one entity and to announce the award in January of 2023. So to wrap up, here are some important dates we've already noted throughout the presentation. By October 20th, we'll post this recorded webinar as well as the answers to questions asked about the cooperative agreement opportunity. Everyone who registered for this webinar will receive an email with links to the recording and Q&A document. Eligible entities are invited to submit a letter of intent applications must be submitted through grants.gov by 11:59 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on Monday, November 28, 2022. And finally, we anticipate announcing the Cooperative Agreement Award in January 2023. If you have questions about the RFA after this webinar, please contact the grant officer, Anna Aerosmith at annaerosmith@usda.gov. So this concludes the presentation portion of today's webinar. I'll now turn things over to Kim Visioni, who has been reading through some of the early questions submitted in the Q&A box. Kim?
Thanks, G, and hi again, everyone. Thank you all for being a great audience. I see that we have many questions, so the panelists can all start their cameras again. I'll read through some of these questions. G, I think we could start with a question for you. Are SFAs eligible to apply to this RFA?
So no, SFAs are not eligible to apply for this cooperative agreement. The RFA is open to all non-governmental entities, including accredited colleges and universities, private or public nonprofit or for-profit research institutions or organizations with experience working in school food service and working with school nutrition professionals to improve the nutritional quality of school meals.
Thanks, G. I can take the next question, which is, will the subgrants be given out on a rolling basis? No, there will be one application period and one award date for all subgrant awards, so they will not be given on a rolling basis. Also note that FNS reserves the right to reallocate or recompete unused subgrant funds if less than the full amount of funding is awarded. We received a related question of when will the subgrants be available to the SFAs for applying. Once we have a cooperative agreement, we intend for the subgrant applications to be out prior to July of 2023. Alicia, I have another question. Does one organization need to do all of the work under this RFA?
Well, this cooperative agreement will go to one non-governmental organization who will be responsible for managing all the work under this cooperative agreement. However, applicants can propose how they will partner or contract with other entities to achieve the work under this RFA. And FNS realizes that different organizations might have different strengths and capacities to bring to the work under this RFA, and that a strong approach might involve an applicant partnering with other organizations that also have experience in providing grants to SFAs, providing training for school nutrition professionals, planning meetings and conferences, and so on. So in the application, an organization should describe any planned or existing partnerships with other entities who have committed to working with the applicant on the proposed activities. And documentation of such commitment should be included in the appendices of your application. And finally, USDA does encourage applicants to partner or work collaboratively with organizations to affect a meaningful impact on racial equity and inclusion under the objectives of this cooperative agreement. Thanks, Kim.
Thanks, Alicia. The next question I think can go to you, Anna. How long does it take to get a SAM account?
Thanks, Kim. We say in the RFA to allow 4 weeks, but that should be plenty of time for you to register with sam.gov. And then once you are registered in sam.gov, the next step is to register an account with grants.gov. I've already had a couple people ask me about that they are trying to apply for the grant through grants.gov, but they haven't done any of the registration information ahead of time. So allow 4 weeks, but it probably won't take that long, but I'm sticking to the 4-week guidelines.
Thank you, Anna. All right, we'll circle back to G. Any other questions you see coming through?
Yeah, I do see one about subgrants, and this person is asking how much money goes towards subgrants. So the answer is 30 of the $47 million available for award under this cooperative agreement will go towards subgrants for small and or rural SFAs. And FNS expects that up to 200 small and or rural SFAs will receive a competitive subgrant in the amount of $150,000 each.
Thanks, Jean. I see another one. Will state agencies be reviewing the award applications, that's the recognition award applications, before they are submitted to the cooperator? No, state agencies will not be reviewing the award applications. They will only be asked to certify that the SFA is in good standing before the cooperator reviews the award application. Okay, we can look through some more questions. Alicia, do you see any questions coming through?
Yes, Kim, I see another one also related to the subgrants, and this question is asking if the cooperator would be providing these subgrants to SFAs throughout the United States. And the answer of that is yes. The cooperator would make this subgrant opportunity available to SFAs participating in the National School Lunch Program and or School Breakfast Program in the contiguous United States, Hawaii, Alaska, District of Columbia, Puerto Rico, Guam, or the United States Virgin Islands.
Great, thank you. I see another question. What type of non-monetary awards can be given for recognition award recipients? I think that's a great question. The RFA defines non-monetary awards as not relating to money, so no cash or gift cards. In response to this RFA, applicants should propose types of non-monetary awards that will be motivational to SFAs and in keeping with the spirit and purpose of the Healthy Meals Incentives Awards. In the past, things like banners, certificates, and pins have been used to provide this type of recognition, but the applicant may also consider other types of recognition, such as digital badges, video messages, things like that as part of their proposal. And the organization that's awarded this cooperative agreement will be responsible for developing, producing, and disseminating these non-monetary awards. So the application should reflect an approach that supports these activities in terms of timeline and budget. Allowable and not allowable costs, I reviewed a little bit of them earlier, but regarding the recognition awards, they're all described further in the RFA on pages 9 through 11. In addition to providing the non-monetary awards to SFAs, the cooperator will provide stipends to SFAs to cover travel costs to one of the Healthy Meal Summits. All right, I will open the floor. Does anyone see any questions that they would like to answer? I think we may have gone through most of the questions.
I see one question, which is the recognition award program a one-time award, or does FNS have plans to make the award a recurring award through future funding mechanisms? So currently, as we stated, the period of performance for this cooperative agreement would end in December of 2025, and there are no future plans for future awards at this time.
Great, thanks, Alicia. There's another question. Is the cooperator responsible for preparing an information collection request package for the Office of Management and Budget for the recognition award applications? No, FNS will actually prepare the information collection request package, so that does not fall under the activities of the cooperator. Okay. Well, I think that we've addressed most of the questions, and we're almost out of time. But please know that we'll look at any questions that you've submitted today and that we missed answering during the webinar. We will be posting all of them along with answers on October 20th. I do hope that you found this webinar helpful, and we look forward to receiving everyone's applications for this cooperative agreement. Thank you all, and have a wonderful day.